What happened in practice?
For the Canadian Grand Prix. Formula One is returning to our screens once more, and I was going to say I'm thoroughly excited for this weekend, but then it just remembered what happened in FP1 and FP2. We'll get into that, won't we, Tommy? How are you feeling? Better than I am? Probably,
yeah, for sure. Not the best start of the weekend for your man, was it?
For my man, and no, that's not you. We are talking, of course, about Charles Leclerc. Before we get into that, P1 live show tickets are still available. However, we are popping out sold-out graphics like they are.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say coming out of your ass, but is that okay? I've said it now, so there you go. Both Amsterdam shows are now sold out. London is sold out, and San Francisco as well. Tommy's gone. So yeah, if you want to get your tickets, then please do come along. Of course, it isn't for a while, but you guys are showing a lot of love and a lot of support for it. So thank you so much indeed. Right, let's get into free practice 1 then, where the top 3 were Verstappen, Albon, and Sainz. And no, that was not the biggest talking point, because of course the biggest talking point was Charles Leclerc crashing out of free practice 1, causing a red flag. And not only did he miss, about 35 minutes of free practice 1, he also wasn't able to take part in free practice 2. I remember telling one of my wonderful friends, Jody, he messaged me, he wasn't watching free practice, he's a big Formula 1 fan, he's like, and I messaged him, Charles crashed, for God's sake. And he's like, big crash? I was like, well, front left, rear left, should be, but he'll be fine for FP2. He was not fine for FP2.
He was not. No, yeah. They needed to replace the survival cell, which is a big crash. I've never, correct me if I'm wrong, you very rarely see a car go into that wall. Normally it's on the outside of the second part of the chicane, but we've seen drivers go off, haven't we, at that corner and run over the grass. Sebastian Vettel famously, of course. Yeah. But never anyone kind of going so far off that they then right the front of the car off. And yeah, a big impact to put him out of FP2, and a shocker for him because, yeah, missing out on all that juicy data for the weekend.
And look, I will defend my boy as much as I possibly can, but I can't defend him for this one. It was a mistake, a big mistake. And also, he himself believed that he could have made the corner, but couldn't. The reason why we don't see such a strange crash like that is because either one, they're able to gain control of the car sooner and therefore cut over the grass, as you say, Tommy, or just go down the escape road, and then we see the funny little reverse that takes years for them to find reverse and then eventually get out of there. But he committed to making the corner, and he did not, and he's going to be paying the price for that with hardly any data from today, and Ferrari are going to be pretty much solely relying on Hamilton's feedback going into tomorrow. So the question, Matthias Grundy won, how's Matt feeling after the Leclerc FP1 crash and not participating in FP2? Look, I recall Miami last year where he spun, didn't he, in free practice and couldn't get going again. And then he popped in a lovely qualifying. So Charles doesn't need practice. Practice needs Charles. That's how I want to look at it, but he's there for entertainment purposes. I am fine. And I still believe that they will just pop it in a lovely P5, P6 tomorrow in qualifying. How are you feeling for Ferrari's chances, Tommy? Everyone asks me how I'm feeling about Charles Leclerc. No one asks you.
Well, look, I actually, despite me ribbing you a lot about Charles Leclerc and stuff, I do defend Charles. And I think he's got an unfair reputation when it comes to his kind of pole conversion ratio, which is the thing that everyone sort of like. Every driver has their weaknesses, of course, don't they? And a lot of people mention that one. But I actually think Charles' weakness is that these crashes that are kind of unforced, where he pushes the car too much. And I think for a driver of his caliber that has been racing for so long, I know it's only a practice session, but there's definitely too many of them in his career, and it seems to be more in your practice sessions a lot of the time. I can't think of many other drivers apart from one that we're going to talk about later that have had so many sort of incidents where they've kind of ripped a wheel off or kind of crashed when they're pushing when it's not been kind of forced upon them. It's just pushing too hard.
I could have. I might have misheard you there, but I could have sworn you said Charles Leclerc and weakness in the same sentence. That's actually mind-boggling.
So you're denying it?
And I don't necessarily attach that to him. And now that might be me with rose-tinted glasses. But yeah, he does have a mistake in him. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think he's a particularly mistake-prone driver in general. But hey ho, that's you don't have those glasses on. I don't.
And actually, because I knew people would come back and say, because I saw someone else on Twitter mention it and kind of got not attacked for it, but was like, "Oh, you're kind of exaggerating." So just for the record, I did actually go back and look.
I was going to say, bring some facts, and you have.
And I have. I've brought the receipts.
Oh, no.
So since 2023, so what's that, like in the last couple of years, basically, Miami qualifying, crashed out, Baku qualifying, Zandvoort qualifying, Hungary FP2, Baku FP1, Miami on that outlap, and of course Canada FP1.
It's a good job. Well, actually, I will never ask you about Charles Leclerc ever again now that you've brought these facts to the table. Okay, let's move on now to P1 Patreon member Alan Enderpay's question. What is going on with Ferrari? First the rumours and now the mistakes. It is absolute rife rumour mill at the moment. You've got Christian Horner going to Ferrari. You've got Christian Horner going to Alpine. You've got Hamilton not being happy. You've got Charles Leclerc exploring his options. It is just probably a lot of it absolute BS, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah.
But in the same time, it's an environment where everyone's trying to gain an advantage, both as a team and also individually. Yes, Horner might have spoken to certain teams, or drivers might speak to teams. That is literally what happens all the time. It's not like they're sat there like, okay, so the end of my contract is end of 2026. We'll start talking to teams at the end of 2026. That's just not how it works. What is going on with Ferrari? I mean, it's been the case since the mid-2000s, to be honest with you. So not really much has changed. Fred's popping off in the media as well.
He was. He was very sassy in the press conference, wasn't he?
Yeah, he really was.
Yeah. He was. He basically kind of had a go at the Italian media, basically saying like, leave Ferrari alone, which I get to a point, but Ferrari are the most legendary and successful Formula One team, and they've not won for a very long time. So it's understandable why they'd get criticised, because they went into the season very hyped and with big expectations after what happened at the end of last year. And actually we've gone into it and McLaren are completely clear, and Ferrari they're in second in the Constructors' Championship, which I think flatters them. It's more the fact that they've got two very strong drivers in there, but all these rumours about Fred, I've said this so many times, you can't keep replacing team principals and expecting it to fix stuff. There's clearly bigger problems.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Fred can have too much of a go at the media, because, as you say, a lot of people expected, at the bare minimum, the Constructors' title this year, just purely because of where Ferrari ended last year and how there was expectations with the driver lineup, with the new revamped car. Everything was pointing towards Ferrari cooking up a masterclass, but sadly that did not happen. Let's head to free practice 2, where the top 3 were Russell, Norris and Antonelli, with championship leader Oscar Piastri down in P6, 4/10 off the pace. Question from Craig Tilley 95. Are McLaren sandbagging? Well, my goodness gracious me, they were baiting us for the entirety of free practice 1, where they ended 7th and 14th, and then for the majority of free practice 2 as well. Myself, and you, Tommy, we were messaging like,
surely not.
They're just using the softest tyre. They don't want it. Doesn't matter. But are they ever going to put a lap in? It felt like they were literally running a different track for most of today, because they just kept going straight on at the last chicane. They were like, don't want anything to do with that Wall of Champions, mate. If I see even the smallest lockup, I am going straight on, and that'll be that. I think Norris at the hairpin was really struggling as well. And I don't think McLaren are sandbagging. I genuinely think they are struggling.
Yeah, what have they got to gain from sandbagging? Everyone knows their pace. They know that they are mighty this year and are looking almost unstoppable. But certainly in practice, this is easily the worst we've seen McLaren at any point this season, which is crazy because Lando is 0.02 off the fastest time. But they were struggling. They had updates as well, didn't they? Which they are now wondering whether they continue with or they revert back, and there's a bit of confusion there. And they didn't look dialed in at all. And we're so used to McLaren, even if it gets closer in the qualifying sessions, we're so used to McLaren coming out on a Friday and just being absolutely dominant.
Yeah, it's been the other way.
It's been the other way. They're normally clear.
We've turned the wick up a little bit. Relax. So
for whatever reason, McLaren do look a little bit on the back foot. Whether that's because of the unusual tyre allocations again, and maybe people not showing their hands, because it was another confusing one with the compounds, wasn't it?
Yeah, so for those of you that have missed it, this is the third time we've seen the softest allocation for the Pirellis, the C4, the C5 and the C6, the C6 being the softest. But I mean, it's confusing in some ways because they bring this tyre in, or this tyre set, which we don't see all that often, but it has been pretty consistent every time they've brought these three tyres, that the soft and the medium have been very comparable, and then it's a case of them all just using softs in the first couple of practice sessions. But yeah, it's going to make qualifying pretty interesting, because as much as the mediums are a great tyre to potentially do an extra lap in qualifying, they are balancing the tyre allocation like no tomorrow, because if you get a badly timed safety car like we saw in Spain, and you might not have a set of tyres that you need.
Well, exactly. It's exactly what happened to Max, wasn't it, in Spain? They didn't have the soft tyres. So it's weird how much practice is actually counting towards this because of the tyre allocations now. They have to be careful on these things.
Okay, next question. Polsky Polak _2. Are the mediums a faster tyre for qualifying than the softs? Pretty close. Of course, Russell fastest on the mediums. You have to say that the softs probably still have an advantage if they're able to keep the tyres within a great window for that softs. That obviously is a one lap tyre. It's quite low to sort of. It's reasonably low in terms of tyre degradation, and that's the reason why they've brought it for this circuit. But it's going to be close. But I think it's not the case of whether it will work or not. I think it's clear that it will, with Albon up in fourth as well in the mediums. But it's whether or not they're willing to essentially burn a medium tyre that they may well need at a different point in the race. So I love it. I'm really enjoying what Pirelli have done. Bringing this softer step is what we need, I think. I would love for them to explore having bigger steps in the tyre compounds. C2, C4, C6, something like that. Make it a little bit more of a step, because they've done a good step in terms of making it softer, which is kind of going to more or trying to dip their toes a little bit towards sort of 2012 and those days where you had 3-4 stops. But maybe that was a little
long way off that.
But yeah,
but it's enough, isn't it? And like you say, I'm really pleased that the learnings from Imola seem to have carried over into this, where it's made things a bit more interesting, and here's hoping that we get another interesting race and qualifying like we do at Imola. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we see some people try and risk it on the mediums to get through, like we saw, of course, in Imola.
P1 Patreon member Cuck Ruben asks, should Lance Stroll still be in F1 after another poor showing? It's painful watching him race when other talented drivers cannot get a seat. This is not a meritocracy, sadly. It is a cash money-ocracy for some drivers, for sure.
I'd love Lawrence Stroll to say that in a press conference when he's asked.
It's a cash money-ocracy. But yes, of course, Lance Stroll crashing. I was going to say brushing the wall. It was more like clattering into the wall with his front left. And
it's weird the way he hit it, and then it just
buckled,
like,
didn't it?
No, I'm gone. Yeah.
You thought, he's got away with that. Wait, no, he hasn't.
No.
And then he thought, I can bring this back to the pits. No, you can't. Your front left is basically in the cockpit, Lance. Please stop the car. But should he still be an F1? Look, it doesn't change the conversation here. Like, Lance Stroll is the number one Aston Martin driver. We all know that. He's still higher than Alonso in the driver's standings, and it will remain that way for at least another race or two until Fernando gets some good luck. But until that point, yes, Lance Stroll should still be an F1.
I don't think he should still be an F1, but he will be an F1 because his dad owns the team.
Exactly.
And look, he's any other driver that's driven the way he has in his career wouldn't be there, but he is, and he will continue to be there, even if he's got still maybe issues with his hand or something. We don't know. He was very it's all a bit suspicious, isn't it, that this whole situation, and he spent the whole press conference with it hidden away in his pocket and didn't really answer any questions about it and things like that. Very, very unusual situation.
It's bizarre. The whole thing's bizarre because you think, okay, he sat out of the last race to get his wrist done so he can come back fighting for his home race, the Canadian Grand Prix. He could not look like he wanted to be there less. Genuinely.
He was just chewing
gum,
wasn't
so
he, really loudly.
Underwhelmed. And I know that Lance generally in the media isn't particularly excitable, but
no.
I was like, of all the places, I thought this was what you were kind of doing it for. But it's just not really gone his way so far. But speaking of the next question, it has for them, P1 Patreon member RNB Sheep. Are Williams cooking? I tell you what, James Vowles, what a man. There are some team principals that can't change things at Ferrari, but my God, get James Vowles in that red overalls. We'd be winning everything come 2028. Williams looking really good after a horrendous weekend in Spain. They've bounced back, and we were thinking, hold on, are Williams the second fastest team around Canada? Not quite, but I think they could definitely trouble the coattails of the top 8.
It's a very Williams track, isn't it? I think Fred Vasseur even joked with James Vowles when they said in the press conference something along the lines of, Williams are really good this weekend, and Vasseur went over and said, because there's no corners. Jokingly.
Wow. I love how Williams still have that sort of, this is what our car is, which is just great,
which is so weird because
that's not the case anymore.
And it is weird because they really kind of dismissed that they were just this team that would be rubbish all year and then be able to get an amazing result in Monza and just bag a load of points. And it kind of disappeared, and they were kind of good at every tracks, but they've almost got the best of both worlds because they still go to these power tracks and just seem to be absolutely mighty. So they do seem to be able to set up the car so well for these circuits. That being said, it's so hard fought in that kind of midfield, top of the midfield between Fernando Alonso's in there. The Racing Bulls are looking pretty good as well. You can never count them out. And then, well, we're yet to see where Verstappen is at play in all this. Crazy to think what a year makes that he's P9 in FP2 and it's not really even a talking point anymore.
No, that's not really a talking point. You've got obviously his teammate Tsunoda down in 15th, Hamilton in 8th. There's a few drivers that you might suggest are out of position. Of course, it's practice, so I'm looking forward to FP3. Let's see if McLaren can dial their issues and sort that out, because they're by no means a dominant car from what we've seen on Friday. Can Mercedes finish an entire qualifying session without breaking down? Plenty of questions, and we will be there to live it all on our watch along. Matt P1 Tommy on Twitch and YouTube. We will be live. It's a lovely evening session. Might get the bevs out. We'll see how we feel. Crack open a tinny. There you go. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon. Lots of love. Bye.
What? Goodbye.
What the hell? Where's the bye, Tommy? Were you processing?
Goodbye.
The most delayed bye I've ever heard in my entire life.